The most obvious and basic wavy movement is rolling the spine while rolling down and up. And I would really suggest to do it the first few times, either with the mirror right next to you, or maybe recording yourself so that you can see whether some big sections of your back, of your spine, are almost appear fused and move together as a whole. And what you're aiming at eventually is to move each of the vertebrae separately. And it's good to take it really slow and also to use the visualization. So you can imagine that you are exposing all those bony bits of the vertebra. As first you drop the chin to the chest, and that's how you're getting to the cervical spine. So you're exposing all of these. And then there is that really big knobbly one. You can even touch it. And it's important that the whole body moves together. So if you move only the spine and the legs and the pelvis doesn't respond, it's not going to work. So already somewhere at this point, when you start going below your neck, you can start softening your knees and creating a little bit of mobility in the pelvis. And that's how you start reaching to the upper back. That bit always often likes to move in one piece. So again, focus on exposing each and every of those knobbly bits in the upper back as you gradually go down and start bending the knees and start bending at the pelvis as well. And it might be that that is where you want to spend some time going through just this bit, just the upper back. And then when you're gonna feel ready, you can start getting farther. So once you got to all those vertebrae of the upper back, you would have to bend the knees more and hinge at the pelvis again so that you can reach the lumbar spine. Otherwise, you will not be able to get there. And you want to feel that it's a rounding, that it has a rounded shape. And again, you might even touch each and every of the vertebrae. So you're into this, getting into this really rounded shape. And the last bit of it is when your head goes down and it's really loose, while your tail and your pelvis switches the orientation completely. So your entire pelvis rotated forward and your tail is now pointing somewhere that direction. And definitely you don't want to be here with stiff legs, because then you're losing some of that even curve over the entire spine. So if you're gonna go backwards, you start from receiving the support from the air through the entire feet. And then you can even imagine that this movement really travels up through your shins and through the thighs. So again, no locking the knees, they stay bent and they just slightly lengthen as you gradually move upwards. And the same with pelvis, it gradually moves so that orientation of the tail is changing over time. And again, you're gonna move bit by bit so that you bring back that neutral space for the lower back, for the middle back, for the upper back, and then all the way up to the neck. So going in a more fluid way, chin to the chest to expose the neck, the thoracic spine, Bending in the knees, bending in the pelvis, exposing the lumbar. Everything turns upside down. Still there's softness. On the upper body, the head is loose. The base is from the feet. You give the weight through the feet as you gradually reverse it again, really trying to undo it one vertebra at a time, from the tail, through the lumbar spine, through the thoracic, the cervical, with the head coming up. And as you might notice, I'm not adding anything at the end. Some people try to roll the shoulders back or lock the knees, and that would actually get you into this extended kind of really unnatural position with a lot of unnecessary tension. You don't need that. So this is the basic. And then once you get hold of that, you can create movements that are maybe a little bit more fast, more fluid. And the visualization really helps with them as well. So what really helps is to imagine that you have a tail. And I like this visualization that is this broad tail like that of a dolphin. And the dolphin does this sort of movement to go through the water. And that's exactly what happens to you as well. So as that movement happens in the pelvis, in your tailbone, it will affect the position of the legs, which will respond by bending and extending. And as the pelvis is connected to the spine, it will create that wave that travels from the spine, from the tail all the way up the spine. And as the neck is the end of the spine, and at the end of it you have the head will respond to this movement as well. So this is the movement. Of course, it could go much slower as well. But as you can see, everything is really fluid and soft here. Okay. You can even imagine that your tail is very long. It's really like this, maybe a kangaroo or a dinosaur, something really long, the very big tail that rests on the ground. And you want to use a lot of momentum to kind of swoosh it forward in front of you and backward. So imagine this enormous tail that you're swooshing back and forth in front of you. And it really helps that visualization for this movement to happen. So the pelvis is quite engaged in that, but again, the rest of the spine follows. So much bigger, heavier tail. Okay. And you could actually start this wave, not necessarily from the tail. You might even start it from the sternum, and it would feel different. It might look very similar, but it does feel different because the initiation point here is actually the sternum, the breastbone, and again, it travels up and down. So the rest of the structure still responds to that. So you could play with where you want to start this movement from. And finally, there is a sideways wave. So if the first tail was the tail of a whale or a dolphin, here it's the tail of a fish. And the tail of a fish is vertical, and it moves this way instead of that way. It moves this way, sideways. So if you again focus on your tail and imagine that it's a fish tail, and a fish, goldfish, shark, whatever you want, then this movement is going to move you sideways. So they're not moving forward in space or backward in space at all. It's just really right and left. And again, as this movement travels through you, the legs, the pelvis, and the shoulders and the head will all respond, but really the movement starts not even from the hips, but really from the tail itself. And it might take quite a bit of practice to get into that looseness and to all bits and pieces, but this is eventually what is going to make you really mobile and will prevent you from that feeling that you're waking up in the morning and you're so stiff and so hard to reach somewhere, to go down to the ground, to rotate. It will all be very useful.